Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
A controversial vote was set to take place last week in California. Hundreds of parents showed up to voice their opposition to SB 277. Now, this is a bill that would require mandatory vaccinations for any child attending public or private school, and it will also do away with the personal and religious exemption. Now, a particular portion of the bill was written by Senators Richard Pan and Ben Allen, and this part of the bill, they are seeking to exclude children from attending school who are not caught up on their vaccines. Should SB 277 pass, that means the only option for unvaccinated children would be to be homeschooled. So, of course, a lot of parents are saying that, they can't afford to necessarily homeschool their children. And also, attending school, getting an education is a right and not a privilege. But ultimately, 9 members of the Senate committee are going to have to, decide whether the unvaccinated child's right to an education will trump the rights of public health concerns regarding schooling of those children. Now, the issue is that when it was clear that this bill did not have the support that was needed to get it passed, one committee chair who was in support of this bill threw Pan and Allen a bone. She basically said that she recommends holding off the vote until next week.
If I were you, I would not take a vote today.
And I want to say thank you to our friends over at Courage Sowers for sending us that video as soon as it came out. And they're continuing to do a lot of work for these parents who are speaking out about this mandatory vaccines and doing away with these exemptions. Now, joining me now is alternative health journalist and researcher Jeffery Jaxen. You're doing some incredible work over there at jefferyjaxen.com. Now, I know that you've got some breaking news surrounding this bill. And of course, another vote is set to take place tomorrow. That is Wednesday. So take us back a little bit. The senator throws Pan and Allen a bone. She says, why don't you seek some advice, give yourself about a week, and then he turns around and gets some advice from someone to see what should he do. So explain that a little bit for those of us who weren't there.
Okay, so after roughly 753, I believe, people in the community and family members came forward and said, do not pass this bill, we are not in favor of it. Basically, it was Carol Liu, she's a senator, advised Pan point blank, if I was you, quote, if I was you, I would not take this vote today. And what he did, instead of saying thank you or I'll take that new advisement, he turned around instantly and what looked like handlers gave him advice. And a lot of mothers that have been doing research sent me some information on this, and they turned out to be 2 lobbyists. One is named Janice Norman, and the other is, her last name is Hicks, Jody Hicks. And both of these lobbyists, Jody Hicks works for a private independent lobbying firm in Sacramento, and Janice Norman works for the CMA, which is the California Medical Association. He's the senior lobbyist. So essentially what's happening here is the author of a bill, when confronted with the most crucial decision at point blank, needs to turn to 2 people that are head lobbyists for answers of how he should proceed. So when confronted as well with mothers and fathers and family members, almost 1,000 of them, he decides to ignore them and turn to lobbyists.
Right, and so does one of the 9 members of that committee that's trying to decide on this vote, because there were some others there that spoke out about it. They could see their constituents were obviously really concerned with this bill, and they weren't feeling protected with it. And then you have this one who's in support of it, Senator Liu, basically giving him advice to maybe come back next week when there isn't going to be nearly 1,000 people there standing in opposition, and where he can kind of work on the bill a little bit. Do you have any idea what Pan might be doing to address some of those concerns and what we might be hearing from him tomorrow?
Well, Pan's not doing anything. Pan is just a mouthpiece. So it's basically, what are the lobbyists doing? They're getting paid a lot of money to push this through at the California Medical Association. Well, currently, we do know that two of the sitting senators have been replaced before this hearing for tomorrow. One of them, I don't have the names in front of me right now, but one of them is most likely going to vote in favor of the bill, and one is undecided right now. So it looks like there's a last-minute switch to stack the deck. In addition to mothers that were at this hearing were sending me pictures of some of these senators sleeping during when the parents and the family members were giving their testimonies in favor of not having this bill passed.
Wow.
So they have caught pictures of them essentially with their head in their hands doing the sleeping that, you know, I used to do in school and back in the class when the teacher was giving a boring lecture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's happened to us here as well when we've gone to some of these hearings to try to speak out, and we've had them kind of give us the finger, pretending to scratch their nose or something, but making direct eye contact with us. So just a lot of respect there for the people they're supposed to be serving. But it just seems like either way, they're not going to listen to these parents. They're going to get this bill passed no matter what. Crony capitalism with a gun to your head, basically. Now, you point out in another one of your articles how, GlaxoSmithKline has paid out $63 million in vaccine-related injuries. And this was surrounding, now what's come out was a fake hoax 2009 pandemic with the swine flu. So they were forcing all these vaccines on people, caused some injuries. They've paid out with that. And here again, we're supposed to be trusting the state, who is in charge of, you know, making sure all of our children are caught up on their vaccines and everything. They're putting out a fake pandemic.
Exactly. The GlaxoSmithKline is just a recent example of a laundry list of violations, crimes, fraud from these pharmaceutical companies, including Merck. And essentially it's saying the vaccines are safe and effective until they're not. And then when they're not, you're looking at a big lawsuit. The article that you're talking about, I did some research, and since 2003, GlaxoSmithKline has paid out over $9 billion, that's with a B, in criminal charges and lawsuits due to damages. So you're talking about companies that are supposed to do their research after they release the vaccines to the public. They're supposed to cover the last phase of research to see if there's any issues in the public. And what's happening is they're relying on these lawsuits to find issues. So it's not until the children are damaged, and that's on record, that these vaccines tend to get pulled off the market.
Wow. And so that's what a lot of these parents are concerned with. And it's not that the science is settled, and it's not that these parents think that their kids are so special that they don't need these vaccines, but they're doing the research. They're educating themselves. They're not just listening to what the mainstream media is pumping into their heads. It's safe and effective. There's no issues here. Some of their concerns they're saying is that with this bill, they have to be updated on all of their vaccines: diphtheria, Hep B, the influenza type B, measles, mumps, pertussis, rubella, tetanus, and then any other disease deemed appropriate by the department. So where does it end? I mean, they could add a number of any new vaccines onto this. And like you said, some of these things aren't even being tested thoroughly until the children are already damaged.
What's important to know, too, for the SB 277 bill, the lobbyists that are controlling PAN are working for the California Medical Association, who is they're running community programs for adult immunization called Community Immunity. And they've been running this for the last couple months. So they're also pushing heavily for adult, not only child or children in schools, but adult immunization across the board, which is going to give you an idea of where they stand when this comes to a legal issue. If they can get the legal barriers out of the way, this is not only going to stop the children in the school, this is going to become an adult issue as well.
Right, and so not only is it taking away the ability of the parent to make sure that they're taking care of their child, but you're now taking away the right of a person to refuse any medical treatment. So again, against the law.
Medical treatment as well, it should be noted, that has not been studied for safety and effectiveness in children, in pregnant women, and also for carcinogenic or mutagenic properties. And that says that on the vaccine insert. So essentially, this is experimentation. This falls under the Nuremberg principle number 4 of testing on people that aren't willing participants and don't know the risks.
Right, and there was an article I was reading today where someone there that was working on that SB 277 was like, what's the big deal? We put medication in the water to make sure that people don't get tooth decay and everyone's okay with that. And we're like, no, we're not okay with that. We're trying to get that taken out of the water, but that's how they justify this, is that we've been medicating you guys without your consent. Everyone's fine, it's okay. So what's the big deal with these vaccines? And now let's talk about another article that you wrote where the Surgeon General came out last week on Sesame Street for the whole National Infant Immunization Week. And there's a video there where he's teaming up with Elmo, basically seeking children, tell your parents to get the vaccines. Why wouldn't anyone do it? It's so easy, it doesn't even hurt. And selling this lie that your bodies can fight germs only with the help of vaccines. And I really liked your take in this article because you don't go the whole, safe and effective route. You bring this around to why is a private company's medical product being pushed on kids?
Exactly. And if the Surgeon General was holding perhaps an SSRI drug or name whatever prescription drug that you need to go through a doctor for, how would this ad be different if he was not holding a vaccine? So that's what we're looking at here, is we're looking at a doctor, or a Surgeon General, I should say, that's pushing a medical product to a child. And at that point, it becomes advertising, and the FTC, the FDA, and the Children's Advising Board all have laws, strict laws in place, statutory laws for doing this towards children. And that's just for regular advertising towards children. It has nothing to do with drug advertising. That's unheard of. So what's happening here is the Surgeon General makes no mention of the parents during that. He's targeting directly children and kids. So this is unheard of in television or broadcasting. Is you have a pharmaceutical drug being pushed to children. And to go a step further, let's say he's going to do that. There's no mention of the risks, which all laws on the book say if you're going to have an ad for a medication, you have to also outweigh the risks. That's what that very fast voice at the end of every medical commercial is saying about the risks. May cause death, may cause death. So that's nothing like that was said. So
right.
It's very dangerous precedent that's being set. And on top of that, you have the children who cannot make decisions on their own. What concerns me about this is there's been cases where schools are vaccinating children without parental consent. So this looks to me like perhaps they're setting that up to go in the backdoor route and have children making the medical consent and medical decision for themselves because of what they see on Sesame Street and what Elmo is telling them.
Right, and that was one of the things that really made me angry about that video. Is there at the end, the Surgeon General and Elmo stare into the camera, shaming the parents, or it's so easy, why doesn't everyone do it? Good question. And there we see, once again, the state is sort of pushing that message that they are the authority and that your parents are fools and they're imbeciles if they dare not bring you to get your vaccines. And of course, maybe they're kind of skirting around the whole FDA rules there and everything because they're not promoting a specific vaccine, but they're just saying vaccines in general, your body needs them. And like you say, they don't give them any indication of risks.
Well, it's important to note, too, there's a full push on in the last couple of weeks for vaccination propaganda in the media. This is not mainstream media, but this is television shows. I covered in an article literally 2 hours after SB 277 was voted 6-2 through the health board in California. Law and Order SVU ran the show called Granting Immunity. That cannot be a coincidence. And in Granting Immunity, basically, a mother that lied about vaccinating her kids caused a measles outbreak. She went to court and she was convicted on criminal negligence. So during that show, they called her things like Typhoid Trudy. They called her sarcastically Joan of Arc for wanting to save the world and not vaccinate her kids. And then the final capstone on that was they mentioned that the MMR drug may cause autism. And in the court case on the Law and Order episode, they shot that down by saying it was safe and effective. The CDC has studied it. There's nothing to worry about. That's been proven. So you have this make-believe world in which they're trying to force on the public who get their information from the television of vaccines are safe and the people that don't get them are, once again, a danger to society.
Wow, and that's just incredible because it is absolutely that, where we are being propagated to through our television sets, people that aren't aware of it. They don't even realize that they're being programmed behaviorally, or this agenda is being pushed because they're watching their favorite television sitcom. They don't even realize that they're being lectured to, basically, and that's dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Well, sitting through that Law and Order episode was painful because on the commercial breaks were ads for pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
So directly after pharmaceutical propaganda in this show, and it was very telling.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we're seeing that with the Common Core lessons, where they're talking about vaccines and pharmaceuticals, geoengineered crops, and they don't offer any sort of alternative viewpoint. It's just easily slipped in. It's just you have the other behavior placement. And so this is something we're seeing in television, in news, in movies, in our children's lessons at school. I mean, the one good thing with SB 277 is that it would force parents to homeschool their children so they could get away from this propaganda. But of course, that's not feasible for a lot of people.
Yeah, many of the parents stated that they were going to take their kids out, but let's not forget too, there's a war on homeschoolers. So that issue is not addressed, and that's the answer to a lot of people is take your kids out of school, but they don't address the fact that, well, there's nowhere else to go. It's the government's forcing them into school once they try to leave.
You're absolutely right about that. Well, what do you have coming up this week, and any closing thoughts on this issue?
On this issue, well, it's going to be an ongoing issue. Tomorrow is going to be a big deal for or against vaccines. I think it's a really historic vote that's going through. The bill still needs to walk through a little further to be signed, but tomorrow's going to be a big day. I'm going to be on a radio show tonight as well, talking about these lobbyists and showing that they are string pullers. Richard Penn as well has had a lot of Merck and GlaxoSmithKline money to his 2014 campaign. So it's basically very incestuous. There's a lot of money to be had by the pharmaceutical industry if this goes through, especially because they add more and more vaccines to the children's schedule each year. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I know Infowars will, and I will do my best as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we'll definitely keep an eye on your excellent reporting there at jefferyjaxen.com, and we'll stay on top of this issue. Please get to the bottom of any of those pharmaceutical reps or companies backing this bill. Thank you, Jeffery Jaxen.
Thanks, Leanne.
So the fact is, parents are the expert and final authority over the health of their children. And the fact that even one child could be harmed by a vaccine, that trumps the greater good. And, the fact of the matter is the state is not even working for the greater good at this point. They are working for for-profit corporations. It's crony capitalism with a gun to your head. So be sure to pay attention to what goes on with SB 277 there in California. If they make it trendy there, they're going to try and trickle it down out through the rest of the United States of America. Now, thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and become a subscriber to the Alex Jones channel. You'll be updated with all of our new reports. And you can also become a subscriber to prisonplanet.tv, where you can share your username and password with up to 20 people at the same time. And there you're going to get even more content than what you'll ever be able to find on YouTube. Thanks for tuning into the show tonight. We'll see you here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central.
Used since before the days of the Roman Empire to support the body's natural systems and enhance overall health. Introducing the new InfoWarsLife.com oil of oregano formulation, a highly advanced nutraceutical form of this key herb that has been traditionally used by civilizations for thousands of years to promote health. We have now procured the most high quality and potent forms of oregano oil on the market, sourced from top leading manufacturers to ensure a concentrated level of bioactive ingredients, extracted directly from the wild herb and sealed in easy-to-use capsules. You will no longer need to endure the burning of liquid oregano on the tongue. Wild crafted from the Mediterranean oregano species that experts agree is one of the most powerful and most challenging to acquire. This winter season, it's more important than ever to secure this true form of oil of oregano. Now available in our limited first run at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the Infowars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.